everyone, welcome to another episode of Pit Yak a Crack. I'm Sonny Brightwell, one of the hosts. With me is my co-host, Stuart Brightwell. Hi, Stuart.
Hi.
Good to see everybody. I've been on my own a couple of interviews recently.
Yeah, I'm back.
He's back. Everyone thinks you left. I've been comments on social media that you've left. What have I said to you? But no, he's back, everyone. He's back. With me today, two special guests, and epitomises the point of the show, really. So the point of the show was to talk about we're pit yackers, and it was to interview interesting people, but essentially it was about the spirit of the Northeast and how we grew up and where we're from. We interviewed our dad in the first 3 episodes it ended up being because we were there that long. And today is a similar vibe to that. So we've got an ex-miner who grew up in a colliery, which we'll get John to go into. So do you want to introduce yourselves? So
I'm John Devine.
And I'm Gillian Devine, John's wife.
John's wife. And Gillian is our cousin. So thank you for agreeing to come on, Gillian. I know you've got loads of stories that we discuss over the years. And actually, we've done a podcast downstairs before.
Yeah, we have.
We talked about the old times and stuff. So, but we'll start with yourself, John, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And what we thought was, you and I discussed, we'll talk about kind of, growing up for you, really, and just start there right at the beginning, I guess.
Yeah. So, I was born in 1962 in a little village called Station down near Wingate. I had a quite normal life for the first few years. I had an older brother, 6 years older than me, old Mick. And we had a sister in between us, Judith, which you didn't know about. Unfortunately, she passed away when she was only 1. She had a hole in the heart. With the technology we have today, it would have never happened.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it did. I was raised in a colliery house. And the first house we had was only a 2 up and 2 down, 2 rooms downstairs, a kitchen and a living room, and then 2 small bedrooms upstairs. I can't really remember that house. Shortly after that, we moved to another one a few streets away in Acklam Street, which was a bit posher. We had 2 rooms. They had 3 rooms downstairs because we had a kitchen, living room, and then there was a bath. A bathroom that had been made out of a cupboard. So it just had a bath in, no toilet. The toilet was still across the yard, and the 2 bedrooms upstairs. So lived there for sort of 5 years. The first 5 years, really happy childhood with me mum and dad. Unfortunately, my mum got cancer when I was only 5, and she was poorly for a while in hospital, and then got out again, resumed normal life, so to speak. And then when I was 10, she got cancer again. Didn't survive that one. She was only 44 when she passed away, but she was bad for a full year before she passed away. And then my life sort of like seemed I was from auntie to grandmother to back home with my dad, more or less till I was like sort of 18-year-old. But after I left school, I didn't have a great deal of interest in school, if I'm being honest. And I think I'm not blaming anyone for this, but I was like from one house to another where I wasn't interested in school. I was more interested in being out with my mates on a night.
Can I ask you a question about school, John?
Of course.
And yourself, Julian, as well. So we grew up at a time where kind of corporal punishment type stuff was being phased out. You probably didn't see it at all, did you? People getting hit off the teachers.
No.
The back end of my junior school years, they were still hitting people with the black sand shoe, like a plimsoll.
Right, yeah.
They would still smack people with them. I think I told the story previously. I recall a lad who I won't name, but he wasn't a bad lad. He quite a rough upbringing, but he was a canny lad. And he's struggling now, friends with him on Facebook. He's really struggling. It's horrible to see. But he was actually on a Friday assembly. This teacher, Mr. Oliver, got him up on stage and got one of those, it wasn't a table tennis bat. It was like that, though. It was like a paddle. He got him up on stage, made him bend over a table on stage with everyone in assembly and smacked his backside. Was there, until grew up, what was, because it really interests me that people got away with that crap. What was your school like with that?
Well, in the junior school, you never got a slipper, you got the cane. So it was it wasn't even bamboo. It was like a thick sort of cane that was solid. Didn't say a lot of it in the junior school, but from the little 3-classroom junior school I went to in Wingate, from there I went to St. Bede's in Picketing, and the cane was like, for me, I used to get it on a weekly basis.
Question, where did you get hit with the
across the hands?
There.
across your hand, your fingers, or if it was like something a bit more serious and you were getting, it all depended on the punishment you were getting. It was always the cane or like a detention. But the things where you used to get up there was never detention, it was always a cane. And you used to get them across the hand, or if you got sent to the head, was like maybe toe on each hand and then toe across the backside. And let us tell you, the ones across the backside was the hurters. You couldn't hardly sit down. But even the ones on the hands, we used to have some teachers on us. Two in particular, both passed away now. My head house, Mr. Carney, Mick Carney called him. I met him years later when I worked at Caterpillar. We'd done a project at the school and he came down to see us. Lovely fella, big Sunderland supporter. But he used to dish it out like this, as though it was just
Banal.
everyday occurrence. But him and another teacher called Mr. Hudson, they all had the canes named, all depending on how harsh they wanted to like hurt you.
Do you think it was a deterrent or not?
I'm not too sure because I used to just get it together next week for some different books.
It was meant to be.
Well, to be honest, it didn't do us any harm. It did on the day when you were getting hurt. But I recall one time, just not long before I left school, really, I used to know about this lad called Mickey Miller. He still lives in Hazen. He bought one of the houses down the dog track. And I worked with him years later. But me, Mick, and another lad called Colin Taylor, they were both from the same. I can't remember what we'd been up to, but we'd been up to something. And Mr. Carney was reading out in assembly and he asked for shouted out our three names to stop behind after assembly. So he took us down to his office and it had this like little place outside with a seat outside, and he given us a good dressing down out there and right, get in here. So I went in first, and Mickey Miller said to us as we were walking down the corridor, listen, when he gives again, just look at him, just stare at him and just pretend it's not hurting you. And like idiots what we were, like 15-year-old, maybe 16, goes in the office, and his office was always a tip of these crisp boxes, what he used to sell crisps at dinner time. Right. And he got his key out and he was still like giving us a good dressing down. So I went in first. He said, shut that door. So I shut the door. Them two was outside. He got the cane out the cupboard and he just started banging the crisp boxes about to get them out the way so he could give himself plenty of leverage to give us a good. And then we're sitting outside going 1, 2, 3. I hadn't even had it then. He was just banging the crisp box. And Colin Taylor said, right, that's it, I'm away, because he got up to about 8. So I'm not up to that. He ran away from school. Me and Mick was just on about it a couple of years ago when I bumped into him, like, but every week we used to get it.
Was it a thing at the Easington?
Yeah, all the time.
You would have had it, don't you?
I did.
No.
The majority of the lads did, though.
Did they?
And some of the other things you say, right, 1,000 lines. They'd make you sit and they would make you write and write and write. But
Same
then
thing over.
detention and the cane for them. Then they would get the plimsoll. I think the girls got the plimsoll and the lads got the cane. But the thing, did you learn from it though?
No, not really.
No. I mean, now you just wouldn't get away with it, would you?
No.
Didn't do us any harm, mind. It's like I probably did ask to get some sort of punishment. It would have probably been worse if I was like had to stop behind after school or something like that. I just thought it was like
playtime.
It was like moving quickly.
What was like a parent's thought on it? If you come home and you
Well, it has happened to them, so
right, so it was just well, you deserved it kind of thing.
I mean, many years ago, when your dad was at school and my mum, I always remember my nana telling us a story. There was a teacher called Thumper Neil, Mr. Neil. And I think he'd had a bit of a to-do with one of our sons. And he'd gone home and he'd said, I've done something wrong today. And he's punched us, he's thumped us. So she said, all right. So she went to the school and she called him out and she punched him. I'm going to give you what you did to my son. And she punched him and all. Got turned out the school.
But I was thinking about this the other day, right? So we grew up with someone, and again, I won't say names. We grew up with someone whose son was I won't say wrong, but he was into bad things, right? And every time anyone ever went and confronted his mum, she would go crazy with them. Never accept that he could do any wrong. Yeah. And other people, if someone went to their house, they got wrong again. You know, I can't believe you brought people to the house and you get wrong again. But not this one. It was always defense of this person. And it turned out that didn't help him at all, because he did turn into an actual wrong. Do you know what I mean? And still is, I think, you know, still into all that type of stuff. Yeah. So that punishment that you say it didn't work, but you turned into an upstanding member of
It didn't do us any harm.
Community, exactly.
I think what it did, it sort of, you knew right from wrong.
I think gauging
Although
more
they were
respect.
daft
isn't it?
little things what we used to do, like
Mhm.
ridiculous, not doing what you should do,
Yeah.
and but they would give you the cane for that, like if you didn't, or if you back answered someone, or get out. But it did teach you right from wrong.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. And
I
maybe
think
there's
it
a
gives you
balance.
respect for adults, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The elders as well.
You know, I'm not close to schools and that at the moment. I've got a little one who's going to go next year, and I'll be back into that school system again. But it does seem like the teachers have got an impossible job
Aye.
to do. Not that this is my interview, but I always remember, right, I was going to become a teacher. I think I had a car on finance, and you took the car, and you were like, "Don't worry, I'll take this over the finance, so you can leave your job and go back uni and become a teacher." And then I think someone broke into the car, bent the window back to pinch a hamper.
It was a big hamper I got off Man United for Christmas, and I went into the betting shop, left it on the back seat. Someone's walked past, seen the big hamper, and thought, "I'll have that." Bent the car door, took the hamper, and left. I came out, and the car door was like that.
Ringing and saying, "I can have this car back." So that was the end of that was Chicken Sport. Yeah. So that was the end of my.
I can remember that.
And actually, I'm over the moon because I can't stand kids, if I'm being perfect. Apart from me, obviously. So, sorry, that was digressing. So,
No.
So you were going.
I got to the end of school. I'd done all right in school, to be honest. I wasn't too bad, but I got to like 16. I just wanted to be out of school, so I left. Then you could leave school at Easter, so I didn't take any exams.
Did you know?
None. I left, and then I was wanting to go at the pit. So my dad never worked at the pit at all, and his dad didn't, but my great granddad did. He worked in Wingett, my grandfather mower. So there was a lot in the Devine family, which is a big family in Wingett. A lot of them worked at the pit, and then went on after Wingett closed to go to Easington and Orden and Blackall and pits like that. For me, I went to work with my dad for a couple of weeks on the buildings. Didn't really like that, and then I was just waiting for me time to go at the pit. I had my name down, and I was going to go to Easington because all my mates worked there, but Horden came up first, so I went down there. And then when I started the pit, I think I started in 1979. It was like you could more or less leave, if you had your name down before you left school, you could leave school on the Friday and start the pit on the Monday. So I remember the early time, I was only 16, so I had to go through Whitburn for a medical. That, and you used to just go at the pit and you used to put you in the back of a van. It looked like maybe 6 or 7 years and go for this medical. I'd done that and then started on the Monday. You had to do 2 weeks. There was a training centre at Same. Trying to think if you could remember. Can you remember where Jobs' ice cream factory was?
No,
It was just so, same Red Star, the front of the building, the grass out the front of there. The pit was there. You called it the Knack.
right.
And there was a training centre. It was a working pit, but the one of the levels was just dedicated to a training centre. So I went there for 2 weeks above ground training, and then went back to the pit and you worked on the surface. I think I was there about maybe 12 weeks or so on the surface. And then you went back for your underground training. If you were, I'm not sure about, I know for mine, because I was under 18, we had to do 10 weeks underground training. But if you were over 18, I think you might have done 4. Well, you must have just been more of a liability or being, But I really enjoyed the underground training. I absolutely loved it. And then went back to Horden, went underground, like working on the conveyors at first. You go down and you have a couple of weeks with like this, they were like old timers then getting ready to retire.
Right.
And you would be just cleaning under belts and they would be keeping an eye on it, to show you the ropes.
Yeah.
And then after that, on like, you called it the gear head, where one conveyor loaded onto another. And then just, you progressed, and I went on timber laden where you're like taking girders and into the face and stuff like that.
So how far are you underground?
I think at Horden we're about 3 or 4 mile out under the sea, under the North Sea, and going down 1,700 feet, something like that. You would find out exactly, but I never used to take much notice.
How did you just get down? Was it like
Just like so there was 2, Horden, there was 3 shafts went down, and it just had like a cage. What they've got on isn't what you see on the. It was just one of them. Most of them had 3 decks in, and you just, there was like a legal amount of men you used to put in, and it would probably be like that going down, but coming down, coming back out. You get as many in as you could, like that, because you wanted to be out. And then you just stood in this cage and dropped down.
You had to hand the
Yeah.
token though, didn't you?
You had
Really
two
good.
tokens. One that you had to keep on your person while you were down the pit, and the other one you handed in before you went down. And it was just in case there was an explosion out like that. They could identify you and knew who you were because it had your unique number on.
Right.
I can still remember both my numbers at the two different pits I worked.
Really?
At Horden was 1483 and at Merton was 1119. Still remember them now.
Still got the
It's
tokens.
30 odd years since. So I was at Horden for a few years, and then it was starting to like wind down a little bit. And obviously it shut a few years later, but I got the chance to get transferred, and I transferred to Merton. And I was there at Merton since I think it was just before the strike, the 84-85 strike. And I finished there, I think it was 91 or 92. Really loved it. I don't think I'd ever been to Merton in my life.
Really?
When I got transferred there, no, and I worked with some really, really good lads like I still keep in contact with. But I would have never, if the pits hadn't been starting to close, I would have never ever left the pit. I absolutely loved it. And to think about like my work and life, I've worked 44 years or something. And the time I worked the pit was still the best time of my life working with the people. Like there was just no, if I put in comparison to some of the places I've worked at, I've met some really in all walks of life, in my working life.
Yeah.
I've met some good people, but I've met some absolute, I wouldn't speak to some of them again, like ever.
Right.
Like people I work with, and not like I ended up like a manager the last place I worked at, and it wasn't the lads on the shop floor, it was other people.
Yeah.
To the point where I got to like, I think it was 57, and I just come in one day and I said to Gillian, that's it, I'm done. I'd been like contemplating finishing for a couple of years probably, since I was 55, and she was like, aye. I said, no, Jill, I'm telling you, I'm done. And I got up the next morning and just went to work and wrote me a notice out, and that was it. Did you? But the pit was,
the people.
camaraderie was unbelievable. Right, like
Was it
proper
hard
community.
graft?
I mean, it all depends what you were doing.
Right.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be really hard. But there was some jobs you done that was, fairly simple.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember, you only work 7.25 hours. That was with your travelling time in and out as well.
Right.
So if you worked 6 hours, that'll be it.
So how long did it take you from
It all depends, Joe, because like after I finished for British Coal, I had a knee operation. I didn't have to remember when I had my knee operation.
I actually can.
Yeah. And I was out of action for a year. Like I thought I was never going to walk properly again. I couldn't. And anyway, I was going for physio for ages. And it was only soft tissue, but then there was no keyhole. It was, I've open surgery. And honest, after that, so gets myself sorted after that. Right, I need to find a job. And anyway, I went up to, like, you called it the dole then, I didn't know what you call it now. And I went up and I was going to sign on just because I was getting no money. And I remember sitting down with this bloke, and he just says, what was your line of business profession? I says, I was a miner. He says, just as luck happens, there's some work. And I was thinking, I actually want to do that. And he said, so I explained, I says, look, I'm looking for something else. I've just spent like the last 12 years, apart from the strike, the last 12 years there, I want to do something different. There's no like future in it. He went, well, you either do this or you don't get any money. So I ended up going contracting for, I think it was about a year, wasn't it? And I was going up Ellington, travelling up there every day.
Yeah.
And we used to work 12-hour shifts. Oh, honest, it was horrendous. Red hot.
At the pit?
Oh, what's that? Boiling hot.
Was it?
And we had to work 12 hours because they were that far out. I think they were about, I'm going to say 8 or 9 mile out under the North Sea. And we were working in the developments, so it was the furthest out, But I'd done that for sort of a year. And then they were starting to wind that down.
Yeah.
And I made some really good money there, didn't I, when I was doing that? Like, really good money. But just my time at the pit, I would have never changed it. And I'm pleased that I did go into that, because it holds some, like, really good memories for us. Really good.
So we grew up not that linked to the mines, because Dad wasn't a miner, but Uncle Ray was your dad, Gillian.
My dad
Did he
was.
do
He started off on the buildings.
Right.
It's like labour on the buildings.
I think it was at the pit first. I think it was pit, buildings, then back to the pit.
Because the buildings, that didn't know. So he'd gone down to Easington. I mean, he was there for quite a few years.
Oh, he was there a long time.
He was a wagon wayman.
So they used to put all, just to explain, because a lot of people don't know, they used to put the track down for the locals to run our haulage systems, and they'd also put like the rope haulages in, and they would splice the ropes together and whatever. It was quite a difficult job to do. Like, if you didn't know,
Were the different jobs different paid?
so you had like power loading would be face workers and whatever, development workers. They'd get the highest pay. Then you would have grade B with stonemen. That's where I ended up on, where, you know, you'd be taking bottom up and making refuge walls, stuff like that. And then you had timber laden C, and then like data work, D, they were the lowest.
And you had no previous
Well,
experience?
no, 'cause you got trained while you were there.
Right.
You got trained while you were there. And like the training you done, like I was saying earlier, the underground training was good, but it wasn't like you learned when you got back to the pit.
Yeah.
Like, you went with people who was, you know, experienced, and that you learned off them. You learned like how to keep out of danger, and because it was quite dangerous, like some of the stuff you done.
Yeah.
But you learned off them. I've never worked anywhere like it. The people look after each other.
Yeah. Well, you know, like the health and safety at work, that kind of stuff my dad used to go on about it, didn't he? Imagine the pits were still going now, and that probably would pass a lot.
No, they wouldn't.
Well, that came in 1974, though.
Yeah,
Health and safety work at 1974, didn't it? So it was in its infancy then, but it certainly wasn't around in the early.
No, and I think it's grown
it
arms
has
and
to.
legs, hasn't it, since then? Because when I finished like the health and safety,
It's mad, isn't it? Now?
it's like, as a manager, you were, every day it was just something different. Like, where you were worried about, you used to come home worrying about stuff that had happened, or if there'd been an accident. Like that last place I was at up the road there, they were like, you had to go in front of a board of people if there'd been an accident. I'm on about something quite trivial, because they used to say every accident was preventable.
Yeah.
Which I agree with, to be honest. But sometimes people do daft things. And
My dad witnessed a nasty accident, though, didn't he? When
there was a couple at Easington where there was like death's eye, and he got called back to the pit. I mean, we'll not mention any names, because them people still have the families.
Yeah.
But he got called back to one that he had to go himself and say to, where a lad had been killed, and he was still in like situ type of thing when we got there, and that affected him for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
I bet.
Massively.
It did.
So, he enjoyed the pit, though, didn't he?
I loved it.
Made loads of friends down there, and or like proper crack community people. You had each other's backs, and everybody knew each other, didn't they? Everybody had an out, as they would say.
Yeah.
And
That's what my dad said, didn't he? On the,
yeah, everybody
you know.
come from the same kind of background.
Yeah.
There was no like body trying to like overstep the mark here or being better than this one. You all came from the same background, and you all worked.
I mean, when I first started, I remember the very first day I went down Horden, and there was a fight. So like, we used to work 3 shifts, and like the first shift was sort of 4 o'clock in the morning. Then you could call the back shift 9 o'clock, went down the pit, and then afternoons was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they used like a 10 o'clock at night shift, but the same people used to work that nearly all the time. And anyway, we get out the cage, this first day down the pit, in between these 2 airlock doors, and there must have been about 40 or 50 men in between. And all of a sudden, these 2 lads start arguing and just punching each other. And I was like, I mean, I was a canny big lad when I was 16-year-old. I was absolutely crapping myself again on the wall, like, this thing will ever after me, like. And it was like this, it was over as soon as it started.
Yeah.
And then they just kept on walking, and like, had a disagreement, and that was it. But
Got it out the system, though.
aye.
That's the thing. They used to get it out the system, and that was it. Now they don't do
But
it.
even like when you were at the pit, say you were 16-year-old, and you're with, there might be 2 or 3 is with one bloke, and then another group with another fella, you know. And if you start working yourself, they will give you a crack, like, across, like, just give you a bat across the face or something. Like, no, you wouldn't dare, would you?
No.
Was it? Did you used to come out like black?
It all depends where you work and stuff. Some like you could come out as clean as you went in, but other places you come out black rotten.
My dad was always like, had mascara on his eyes, didn't he? Like,
Police.
still-
That's what you have to call
Police.
it.
It was a mad
Sitting in
experience.
the King's Head on a Friday night, everybody else was you think your eyeshadow on.
I remember a friend of ours telling me a story about he worked with an old fella. The old fella was younger, and he was working with this old fella, and they're on the surface and they're walking along and they're chatting away, and he looked and he'd gone, and he turned around and looked at him. He just stopped mid-flight, pulled his trousers down, and just started taking a dump. And when he's,
Well,
when he's finished, just pull his augers back up, fasten them up, and continue.
It's on your shift.
No. There's a lot of people. There was a saying at the pit: never answer telephones or pick up flat stones, because people would just have a dump, like Sonny says, and just put a flat stone on top of it, or they'd have a shovel, have a dump on the shovel, and then just put it on the belt, put a bit of stone dust on it, and stick it on the belt.
So you'd be eating and drinking and doing all that as well, the same place.
You had to wash your hands and all like that.
Well, hand sanitizer at the time.
It's mad that you saying you loved it and that. Like,
I did.
you know the way you describe it.
Uh-huh.
To me, I couldn't think of anything.
Well,
else.
same here, yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't experience what you experienced. You know what I mean?
Nah.
Was it compact? Did you have it?
Why? It all depends where you work. Like some places was really high, and other places you've gone in, it was like that. Like if there'd been any weight on or like that.
How long did it take you to get from the shaft into the...
Again, it all depends where you work. Like when I was at Horden, it used to take maybe about 20 minutes, like on a rope train, and then you got off, and then you went this drift, like a kind of stayed drift on a conveyor belt that linked all three seams together, actually, that. And then we would get out halfway up and then I worked in the J seam at Horden. And then when I went to Merton, I worked in loads of different places in Merton over the time. But some would take like half an hour, and some you could just walk into, really. And like west, you could just walk around the corner from the shaft and a little running on the belt, and that was it. And then when I was Ellington, it used to take ages. Yeah, just because like you run a train for about 40 minutes. And then you were off then on a belt for about another 15 minutes. Then you had to walk. So that's why you had to work the 12-hour shifts, because we used to do, like, when I was at Ellington, we used to work 11 o'clock at night till 11 in the morning, which was horrendous. Then another long shift was 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night. And then we had a short shift, which was 5 o'clock in the afternoon till 11. By the time you got in and got turned around, you were on your way back out again.
All right.
I used to love that shift.
So I guess mining's gone from like men going in with picks to then what we were talking about, you know, them duckbill cutters, cutters and all that. In the end, like when you finished up, how was the core being cut at that point?
A lot of them had all my time at the pit was all mechanized, like hydraulic and electric driven machines, and then towards the end was all electric. So they were really powerful. You know, they rip up and down the faces really quick, but it was all electric.
Yeah.
So everything was really modern. And then even the cut machines, the tunnel machines was absolutely huge. Now, I remember when I worked at Merton, a lad I worked with, Dale Smith from Blackwall, me and him got set on with these two fitters dismantler. It was a Dosco, like a road header, the big boom on the front. He called it the Dosco LH 1300, and we had to strip it down, and they stripped it into 3 sections. And it weighed 30 ton, the whole machine. Me and him was lifting the bottom section of it onto this, like, we had to put it on one tram in the centre, but you couldn't hardly get it on because it was that big. And we had these 2 sets of 4 ton, like, lifting tackle blocks, so we lifting away for ages. And I see them looking at the bottom, saying, "Hey, these tractors not coming off the bottom." I said, "Keep pulling, man." So we're pulling on these chains. I should be lifting. We looked up like that, and the girder on the top, what we're lifting off was just board. But I had some great times there, like really, really good. I had some good laughs, worked with some really good people. I still keep in contact with a lot of them. Yeah. Still know a lot of them, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So that was, so you went there straight from school, you were 16, you go in there, various jobs and stuff like that. But in the middle of that, obviously,
had the strike.
Had the tough times.
I saw the strike. I think I was only 21-year-old, living back at my dad's. I was with my dad at the time then. And when the strike started, it started in the March of 1984. And I had a few quid saved up. Because I was a single lad, and I and Gillian had just been starting to see each other the July before in 83. And I was thinking, all right, a few weeks off, I owe them all, you know, like a few good sessions and that. So it started in the March, like I say, and by 2 months in, couldn't see any end of it. And I ended up not going into detail, but I had a bit folly out at home. And I came over, I think I rang Gillian and said at the time, look, this is what happened. So she says, come over house. So I went over and I explained to Mum and Dad, they were asking, are you all right? And I ended up not going home. I ended up stopping there. At the time, your Uncle Ray and Auntie Beldy said, look, John, if you want, there's a spare room there. Because that's the way they were in them days.
Yeah.
There wasn't any, like, sleeping together or nothing like that. There's a spare room. You can stop there as long as you want. But it was, I mean, at that time, there was 4 of us living in the house. And there was only Gillian working at the dentist. And I was just saying earlier, I can still remember how much she used to get paid a week, 26 quid. And she used to spend all her pay on groceries to feed us. No, because we weren't getting a thing. And there were hard times, but we had some really funny and good laughs. Like, I've told Sonny before about this. They were all coal fires at the time. In the winter times, it was horrendous, like, because you couldn't get any coal. And we were going down the lines, like down behind Castleade and getting coal, because they used to ballast the railway lines with coke and coal in them days. We were going down there and getting it. And anyway, this week, it was snowing on the morning, no fire on, it was freezing in the house in Rosemary, freezing cold. Anyhow, Gillian had gone to work and I was like just pacing about the village, like, I come out the back of Beldy's and I walked down Cadwell Lane and they were just done building them houses up from like the Cadwell farm. Anyhow, like just flurries of snow coming down. And this, at the time, it was the Pt1 and they had these orange, like I used to put the telegraph, the telephone wires in there. And they came around the corner in this Land Rover, and they were orange, the Land Rovers, right? They had this trailer on, he had 2 big lampposts, right? Wooden lampposts on this trailer. And anyhow, I'd gone over towards the village inn and that, gone around the corner, just wandering about. When I come back, they'd lifted them with this winch off onto the ground. There was like a bit, it was like a building site, but they hadn't really started it. They were just putting services in. Anyway, I'd stopped snowing really, really heavy. So I makes me way back up to Belly's and your Uncle Jim was in. And I says, hey, Jim, I says, they've just dropped 2 telegraph poles off down there. I says, we should have gone down in that and get no one. He goes, we can't lift that, man. I says, boy, we'll just take the bow saw down, saw it in half down there and just get off. I says, it'll keep us the fire down for ages. And Belly was like, I think your nana was bad at the time. She was stopping down there, so it was like more in the house, you know?
Yeah.
And Belly was like, hey, you know, fetching out back here like that's been stolen and stuff like that, you know. And I was like, hey, man, it'll keep the fire down the edges. So she would have gone, right, yes. That's what I see. All right, so we guns out, right. Went down and it was snowing like out by this time. So I gets the bow saw out the coal house and away down. So me and him lifts one end up like the lighter end, because I've been saying them when they go into the floor, they surround at the bottom, you know, and he like taper up. So we lifted the light end onto this pile of like bricks and that. And we saws it in half. So we picked half of it up, the lighter end, takes it up and just dumped it in Beldy's back garden. And there she's in the house, oblivious to it. I says, I will go and get the other half. So we guns down, gets the other half and brought that up. So we just got in the house in the back garden. He says, hey, we might as well go and get the other one. If we're going to get it in for a nick and one, we might as well nick 2. So we went down and cut that one in half, right? And anyway, gets them took back up. And I was saying, Jimmy, I don't know how we've nicked them, like, so we sawdust all over the place. But by this time, it's snowing like out, like it's about 6 inches deep. Guns back down, and we were careful where we were walking, went down, and the snow just covered all the sawdust up.
Yes.
Aye. And we went out about an hour later, and these blokes had come back. One was just scratching his head. And me, Uncle Jim, and your dad cut that up, didn't we? And we had this, like, it was like a wedge, what we were splitting it with, honest. And he burnt 2 sets of bars out of that because it was like full of creosote. It was boiling up when you were burning it. But we had some honest, funny.
There was sad times, there were funny times.
Funny times. I mean, I was just telling your sonny earlier on, right? Me, your Uncle Jim, and your Uncle Ray had gone down the beach this year to try and get coal. And it was in the winter time, right? Like drizzly, horrible. And anyhow, we were piercing up and down the beach, like not another coal on the beach. And there was loads of people going down. Everybody started down here.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like vivid memories of people going down with a bag on the what have you.
So your dad, was working at Bridvik, but everyone was in the same boat. Like, there was no call to be had. Abby was working at DJB, and Abby says, look, if you get any call, I mean, we didn't have any mobile phones and all. He says, I'll come down, just park down off his street. He says, well, carry the call up. And he had another call, right? So it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was starting to get, not dusk, but it was getting on that way. And anyway, Radda's walking along the edge of the water line, and he comes, oh, well, look at here. So we looked down, right, and the tide was coming in. There was just tons of coal in the water, right? We get to ICI, bag each other, like scooting it in, you know. His father, he come down, right? His father had this set of wellies on, right? Out, honest, I was giggling like out because he wasn't used to wearing out like that. So he's like puddling down his big wellies on, right? And gets down. He says, "Oh, lads, is that? It's we're at a shout. It's just started to come in, Sonny, but that's the first chance we've had." So your dad had these wellies on, right? Like guns into the water. So it was like halfway up his welly, and he had his back to the sea. And I'm thinking, like, what you doing? You're gonna get on the top of your wellies. And it's still this wave come in, right, and just crashed over the top of him. I'm on about, like, his glasses was like that, like I've put it in. Honest, he was, well, you know how bad tempered he was. He was absolutely soaking, right? But it was freezing cold as well. That language that come out of him, like, and I was like, I had to turn away, mate, right? We're giggling, like, oh, but if he'd seen us laughing, he'd have gone berserk. Honest, it was funny as hell, like, and we got a few bags of coal. There was another time me and Radda was down, and we went along to, like, bought his beer, looking for coal. Couldn't hardly say out, and it was freezing.
So you had to do that to heat your house?
Aye. So me and him, like, come and bought his beer. You know, it wasn't steps, was it? It was just like mud track. Gets up there and he was struggling to get up, you know. And we get to the top. So we're walking up, like, up top north, coming up that way. And I went to come up behind the curry, and he was twisting all the way up, right? He was really going, oh, kind of fierce when I got in there. Like, I wasn't seeing out, and gets up, and it was getting dark. And can you remember Wilson's courtyard?
Yeah.
So if you went in there and got caught, you were getting sacked off the pit.
Yeah.
Really going in, right? And we got there. And we had them, you know, the sandbags where you used to get the pit. So we had them in an ICI bag, right? And I says, hey, give us their ICI bag. And I'm only 21. And he goes, what are you going to do, like? I says, I'm going in there to get a bag of coal. He went, no. He goes, hey, man, you'll end up getting stuck. You've got to think about how Gillian, she's been keeping us and nothing, just slavering on like this, right? And I just thought, I'm not sure, like, it was only like a makeshift sort of fence, but high with barbed wire on, so I'm at the top of the barbed wire. Gets on the pile of coal, and I filled this set of coal in, like, you know, a minute. Yeah, and they were knocking about, so I guess the coal, and I just hear this little voice shouting, hey, fill mine. He's looking oh, anyhow, we got away with it, like, but yeah.
I remember our call out at North Crescent, and there would be times where we had to literally jump in and just swing forward, whatever was left in, right to the front to try and get your shovel in. And like, and it would just put coal dust on, didn't it?
It used to burn, didn't it?
I tell you what's a lost skill, though, lighting fires. I know that's a skill in it. So
Yeah.
I remember no sticks. You know, sticks were like it was a luxury if you had some sticks for it. So getting the newspaper and twisting them, you know, like, so they were a bit more solid. Putting them in so they came away first. Few bits on.
Yeah.
And it was like, and taking what did you call the bit at the bottom? You take the
ashes out.
No, it had like a
Graves.
dot, didn't it? And you take the dot off so that
It's like nice. Don't want it like that.
And then you take it off completely. So when you were like, take it off, then it'll go up, and then
you had to put the shovel on with the newspaper, no blazer, and that bit of paper would get caught like getting the next one.
There was a skill when you put the paper on, you had to crease it in the middle so that it didn't get sucked.
Still,
that's gone.
There's still people use that saying, like
Charting on the blazer.
You're charting on the blazer. Like if you fell out with your wife and you're charting on the blazer, like.
I mean, I remember during the strike, I worked for Dents, the colliery, and the police that all came in, hadn't they? And they cordoned off from the village down to the colliery. So I had to walk down to work. Couldn't get out. I cordoned it all off. Anyway, I gets down to work, and all the miners were having free treatment. So we were always really busy down in there. I mean, they come in, have the injection, they go in the betting shop next door while they were getting numbed up, and they'll have to go and shout and you next. Anyway, this particular day, it was the end of the shift, and it was dark. And this fella came in for his treatment, and he was laughing his head off. And I said, "Yeah, you all right?" I thought he was a bit nervous, and I thought it was a giddy laugh. He went, he said, "I've just come back from picketing." He says, "I've been picketing." He says, "But it's been the best day I've had." He says, "In my life." He says, "Really funny." I said, "Yeah, wow, what's happened like?" He said, "Well, I don't know if you know him." He says, "But there's a fella from the village." He says, "Being locked up." I says, "Locked up?" He says, "Aye." He says, "Well," I said, "What's he done?" He says, "Well," he says, "he was on the front line." He says, "Picketing." He says, "And
You're a Whitburn then.
all the police came along with the tall hats on." He says, "Well, this little fella," he says, "he's funny as out." He says, "He picked the horse pipe up." He says, "And he's put it all the cops and all the hats is flying." He says, "Hey, they've locked him up." He says, "You lot know who it is." I says, "Oh, it's the call him Radder." I said, "No, it was me dad." I said, "Never." He says, "I tell you what," he says, "he's still locked up now." I says, "Never." He says, "He is." He says, "They're waiting for the union. He's put the bit tell their lass and she's gone off it."
She put the rolling pin on the step, like from coming back. Like when they let him out, put the rolling pin as though she was going to bring him the rolling pin. That day, right, they were at Whitburn, that's where they were at. And I wasn't there for whatever reason. So they padlocked the gates, the pickets, put this padlock and a chain on the gates. The coppers come in, like you say, and they were all linked together. So they couldn't do much. And then put the hose on, and the fire hose. And that was just blowing up in there. And but the cops come in and just lifted the whole gate off. Now the padlock on off the hinges. And some of the lads was running down onto the beach and running into the sea. And I was thinking, where are they going to go? You know, it's madness, like. But when he had to go to court for that, I was supposed to. And the union was sorting all your court stuff out and that. And I went through to be his witness. I wasn't even there. And I went through. And I remember I got £7 in a union tie for going. Yeah. Aye.
What happened to court then?
He just got a fine in the union period.
I mean, the day they locked him up for that, they put him in the cell and he was singing, "I want to break free."
His bridge is something, wasn't it?
Funny as hell. But honestly, there was some really hard times, but you had some cracking laughs, like. Really.
See, I remember the strike. I'd have been 9, I guess. You'd have been 5. So your memories of that would be really sort of minimal. But I do remember stuff, and I do remember the kids who I grew up with, whose parents were miners, had it a lot tougher than I did, because my dad was still getting a wage.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that everyone was trying to help each other out and all that type of stuff, and we certainly didn't have any coal and stuff, but he was still getting a wage, so we weren't impacting. I remember kids were getting free school dinners and there was after school events for them and all these things.
I mean, Christmas, there was no presents or anything.
No.
It was just, you were lucky to be there, and everybody was getting like food hampers, but some were fortunate and some weren't. Like my mother got one, she queued for ages, didn't she, in the welfare hall, and when she got hers, it was
the Russian miners like donated food parcels and stuff, and there was like tins of soap and soap, absolutely rank. And they give all these turkeys out to a billion red being killed for ages, right? So they got this turkey, at least we're going to have a decent Christmas dinner. And she opened it on Christmas Eve and it was off. It was like purple, the turkey. Absolutely rank. The house was humming. And she had to eat all in and being like...
I mean, we still had a good day, didn't we? Like a family day, and you had to make your own things.
Can you remember, Jill, when so it was about Christmas time and your mother was going to have like a party in the house for all the family, but you just brought your own bottles and that, right? So I can't remember where we'd get the wood from, but there was me, your dad, your Uncle Jim, and we were sawing all this wood up, right? And we filled, can you remember, in Beldy she had this like double coal bunker in the back garden. So we'd filled this coal bunker up with wood, right? Sawed it all up for the night. So you saved it for the night for this party. And it was a windy day, right? And in the back garden, so like you come through the back garden gate and there was that concrete all the way down.
Yeah.
And she'd been cleaning the house out, right? Ready for all our guests going and all that. And we'd sawed this wood up, like I say, and the sawdust was about that deep in the house, right? And she opened the back door and the wind come in and just blow all this sawdust. And she went absolutely berserk. We all ran out. Out the back garden like she was gone berserk. She's a fiery little bubba. I would, funny as hell.
So did you spend your time? So you were working at Merton during the strike?
I started
Yeah.
just before. I think I started in about December, and then the strike started in March. Exactly. It's funny this. So the strike, the mechanics came out on strike first, fitters, electricians, stuff like that. Obviously, put a picket line on. Everyone was out after that. So a full year on strike, and then at Merton, they went back to work a day after everyone else because they said they wanted to march in with a banner, and one thing and another, and go back with their heads held high. I mean, we went back. There'd been no improvement made on anything. So,
Yeah.
So what was the strike for? Because
it was to avoid pit closures. Pit closures, which Thatcher, I never call her Mrs. because I hate her, but she instigated all that, and we can talk about that if you want. She was wanting to. She just privatised some of the oil industry. I think it was about 1982. She sold the oil off, and she wanted to charge the economy up. And she was saying she was going to close 8 uneconomical pits. But in my opinion, after the 74 strike, I think it was, where the Tory government was downed by the miners through the strike, she just wanted to get back at them all. And she was wanting to privatise a lot of stuff at the time, like open the market up to. And I mean, we've seen how that's ended up. So I went there, just left Horden, gone there in the December, full year on strike. We went back a day after everyone else. And I wish at the time I'd been living at Aisington, because I went to Aisington Pit. Although I enjoyed my time at Merton, I really loved it. And it was just for nothing other than it would have been easier to go to, because then I was living in Aisington.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to get the bus. It was Blenchy's bus, I think. It used to come from Blackhall, Peterlee. Like, it would start at Trinity, go through Wingate, Blackhall, up to Peterlee. Then it would come along the A19, come to the roundabout at Lone and Burn, and then away along to Southampton. So I had to walk up from the village up to Lone and Burn, go yon side of the roundabout. Right. I can imagine in the winter when it was like snowing and that, 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm digressing here. So we went back to work the first year, goes down the pit, and the lads I'd been working with had all been moved, like who I'd gone with from Horden. They had been moved into another scene.
Right.
So I'm on my own. I saw this lad, still friends with him now, Alan Dixon Skirby from Southampton. Worked with him. He was having to go out and see the manager at 9 o'clock. So this is like, went down the pit about 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to go and see the manager. And I never saw him again. He got sacked for something he'd done during the strike, right, when he'd been away picketing. He got reinstated, I think, over a year later. I think he got reinstated. But anyway, that first year after he'd gone out, because I was working with him, no one spoke to us at all. I didn't know anyone. Right. He didn't know if I'd gone back to work or not, because there was a few people went back to Merton. Anyhow, I come back one afternoon from work. Janine comes in. What was it like? I just said, I'm not going back. She went, what? I said, I'm not going back. This is not a soul spoke to us. She went, you'll have to go back. She said, you've just been on strike. Yeah, we haven't want to get married. Anyway, long story short, the next couple of days, just everyone blanked us like. And a lad from Merton, where I've known for ever since then, he was a loco driver, and he just come up to us this day and he says, did you come back to work, mate? I went, no. And after that, it must have gone through the same where we worked, and everyone just started talking to us again. I was happy again, you know what I mean? Wow. It's mad though.
And just for clarity, because you won't remember this, but the lads who went back to work, it was bad, wasn't it? It was like the worst.
I mean, even this day, there was families split.
During the strike.
So I know families where, like cousins and brothers, where cousins, one cousin had gone back to work, we never spoke to them ever again. Never. It's like it was done.
But why?
Because when they went back to work, they broke the strike more. That's what I'm saying.
And it was the same with families who had place in the family.
Oh,
some of them families.
I mean, some of the things the police done during that time was horrendous.
Was it?
Really. It was so they were drafting them in. I remember they called it the Siege of Aisington. That day Gillian's on about, where they were bringing this lad, went back at Aisington. He was the first one to go back. And there's a few rumours, and some of the lads from Aisington might be able to tell you better, but I think he'd done something, and the police said to him, look, nothing to do with the strike. he'd done some crime or whatever. And I think they'd said, look, if you go back to work, we'll let you off with such and such. But he was from over, like, I've got to see a Boburn way, so he went to go into work. So the police had to take them in like these, what you was called the white mesh buses and that in the vans, because they all had mesh all over them.
Mm-hmm.
And the first day they tried to get him into Ace and they couldn't get him in. There was that many pickets down. But that day what Gillian's on about, the lads were still picketing on the colliery site, and the police went to get them out, and there was lads battered to bits. Like, we still know now, we still see some of them. There's pictures, you know, they're on the internet, you can see them, and some of them lads got properly beat up bad. And as a result, they end up tipping the manager's car over, and there was all sorts on. But they wouldn't let you go down the colliery. But some of the things the police used to do, because they were busting them in, you had cockneys there, and they were putting the pay notes up at the gate, the windows, the money they were making, so they were all working overtime, working away from home. And they were even going about asking children, do you know how this is? Like, because they had like cameras watching the pickets, video on them. And then they were getting stills and going around to kids and saying, hey, I'll give you these sweets if you tell us how this is. Like, horrendous.
Right.
It's awful.
It's right there.
And because I don't recall the picketing bit. I know what it is, and I don't remember it happening though. Well, did the miners try every day? They would just go every day.
They used to get paid £5.
No, £2.
Or £2 to
I
go.
was telling your Sonny earlier on.
So what was picketing? What?
To stop anybody like wagons going in and fetching coal out or whatever.
Right.
So you just go like, you know,
Barricade.
block the gate.
I was telling your Sonny earlier on, we used to get £2 a day, right? And I didn't know how to gamble. Like, so most of the time I went down with Uncle Jim, and this day we'd been down, and we used to put a 10-pence Yankee on, and they had to show us what to do with it. And we'd finish the pick. And I was just thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. I remember standing outside that betting shop, right? We used to go in every day. The street was so lively. It was like, even at that time, there was loads of people on the street. And at that time I was talking about, it was a nice sunny day. And I can still remember it. Like, it's one of the things that sticks out in my mind, standing outside of there, more because of the Tony thing.
Yeah.
The vicar. But I can just remember the street was full of people. And like, you go down now and there's hardly anyone knocking about. They got the doctors or the chemist or...
I'm going to tell the Tony story, John.
I mean, it was funny, this, like, so one of the funniest times I had a bit on the strike. We had a vicar in Hazelton. Tony, you called him. I can't remember his second name, no. Anyway, he was a big bloke, like, and he had a bit like buck teeth. I always had a big gravy stain down the front of his cassock. Being Uncle Jim stood outside the betting shop this day, like I say, I could get Sonny there. And I was saying to your Sonny, I can still remember, I don't know, this green like jumper on, and I had it tied around my waist. And Tony was walking down. I don't know where he was going, but he was walking down past the Burren Boat. He's on the other side of the road. And Uncle Jim, you know, the way he is, I was talking to people and all that. So my name stood outside the boat. Tony comes past. Jim shouts out, oh, Tony, all right. Puts his hand up like that. No. And he looked across with his glasses down like that. He went, hello, Jimmy. He goes, has there been many down today? Full 20. The lads, they'll have a turnout, absolutely packed. Keep up the good work, Jim. You kill them, I'll bury the bastards. And he just kept on walking, man. Me and Jim were crying outside the boat. He's like, 20 years old, like.
When we were getting married, he came to our house, didn't he? Because you had to have an interview. And he came to our house.
Well, yeah.
My mum had this Chesterfield couch, didn't she?
Aye.
And he sat in the chair.
So I tell you, so she says, would you like a cup of tea, Tony? No, I'm all right. And he had this little three-wheeler, right, car. And she says, would you like a drink or something else?
But she had a bar in the house.
She never had a lorry in. So she says, John, just have a look, see. And the only thing that was there was this bottle of port, which I can't remember anyone drinking port at the time. Like, he used to get them in a hamper or something.
Yeah.
He'd be there all the next Christmas with me. So anyway, I says, I believe there's only this bottle of port. That'll do. So anyhow, she gets this glass from, right, like a whiskey glass. And she pours the full glass out. Honestly, he just necked it in a one like that. So I pours another glass out and just put the bottle on the top of the bar. And he's rattling away at the belly about one thing and another. And he says, John, pass him that. So there's a little table at the side. Pass him that bottle off. So I just put the bottle down, and he drank the full bottle, right? Anyway, he's getting ready to go down home now. I'm thinking he's got to get in that. three-wheeler, you know, and drive down the street. Anyway, so them Chesterfields used to have like a high back chair, the couch, and then like a club chair like that. And he was in the club chair. And he went to get out and put one leg arm and all his weight on the side, and the chair just toppled out with him. Aye. Anyway, yeah. I had to try and like pick him up. Why he was a right old weight, you know what I mean? Trying to get him off the burn. Anyhow, he got up like and toddled off in this little three-wheeler, and he was supposed to marry us, right? And so me and Gillian had to go down to the house, right? You know, opposite the church, the vicarage in there. So we had to go down for something. I can't remember what it was.
A pre-interview.
Was it?
A pre-win.
Anyway, we went down, right? And so his missus was there. Come on in. And we went in the kip, right? And there was just pots and pans all over the place, like where hadn't been washed, you know. And I remember they had an open fire, and the ashes was like nearly out of the hearth. Like they must have just pulled them out and then lit the fire again and left the ashes there, right? And she says, "Would you like a cup of tea?" And man, they're like, look at each other and no, thanks, no. Anyway, the day we got married, I'd stopped at our mix the night before, like with tradition and all that. And can you remember that suit thing we had on?
The morning suit.
Looks like a morning suit with this pink cravat at the time. It was horrendous. Anyway, me and our Mick comes across with them, and we went in the Diamond for a pint because I was that nervous with their eyes. So we went to the Diamond. The lads was giving us some right old jip, like, where you going with that on, you know. When we got to the church, and he's the vicar stood, it wasn't Tony, she was out with the moon. Like, Yanni Bell, you say, well, I can imagine him with that gravy stain down there on the floor. But it's funny, because we got married the year after the strike.
Did you?
We had to do some serious saving up. I make me, I had arm salad, not like you do. But
I tell you, suddenly I only realised 50-year-old grew up in a mining village, and something struck me, and I don't even know why. But I think it was, I was telling you, like, I'd been going through this phase of going down rabbit holes on ChatGPT, asking it loads of questions. And I end up realising that the Black Diamond is called the Black Diamond because that's what coal is referred to as.
right.
And it's a pit colliery.
Yeah.
And obviously coal's Black Diamond, and it's called Black Diamond. Why am I 50 before I figured out?
Did you not know that?
50-year-old, because when I was growing up, it wasn't a Black Diamond anymore. It was just diamonds.
Diamonds,
Yeah.
I'm like a wine bar, I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
When we were growing
Because the Diamond used to have different rooms in. Like when we got married, it was like a proper bar, then like a bit of a snug thing with a jukebox and then another end, you know. But
and pubs and clubs back then were clubs. There was areas where women
couldn't go in.
couldn't go,
go in
wasn't
the
it?
bar.
Even what used to be the Liberal, it's the South Side now. I remember going in there to get my dad and stuff like that, and they were you'd walk in, and there'd be a room on the right-hand side, and which you couldn't see when you opened the door, it was just smoke, because you could smoke in pubs like that. You'd just be like, Dad? You know what I mean? Like, trying to see someone inside all the smoke.
Well,
Yeah,
there
but
used to
that
be a
just
club-
brought my memories back that about
the Diamond called the Central, and again, you weren't allowed in there neither.
Women weren't.
No,
No,
not
no.
in the bar.
Not in the bar.
Or
None
in
of
the
them.
lounge.
None of the clubs were allowed in the bar.
Where you were on the singing end, weren't you?
Ah.
The singing
Or
ends.
the lounge.
And the opening
lounge,
times, was it 11, 12?
No, they used to. So I think on a normal weekday, the pubs opened at 12 o'clock at dinner time, and then they shut at 3, I think it was, and then they opened again at 6 till 10:30. And on a Sunday, they opened at 12 till 2. Wasn't worth the mountain, but you had to lash a load in if you wanted to drink. So 12 till 2, and then 7 till 10, I think, or 10:30. That's the only time they used to open. But when Sonny was just on about the Liberal, can I remember during the strike when so Bertie went through these fears of going to the chapel on Lower Road there, the village. And anyhow, I can't remember what you called whatever you call him, like the vicar or wherever he was. But he lived in Tight Lake, a big tall fella he was. And he used to come to the house, and the Uncle Ray used to hate him coming. And he used to come to, how are you doing, Billy, and all this during the strike, you know. And anyhow, this day he pitches up, and they'd had some like sort of collection. I thought this would, you know, when you've only got your daughter working in the house, I thought this would do you some good. Anyhow, he gave her about 25 quid, but it was all in change and that, you know. He hadn't gotten out the house, and everybody was changed to go out the south side. Like, so it was like a weekend, right? Anyhow, we guns in the south side. So me and Gillian, where did you stop being like, no, get yourselves out. Oh, I've got this money, you know, for a few drinks and that. So we guns out the south side, right? If he didn't come in, doing a collection on the night. And she hid her rear ran out the back, right? And Belly hid behind the curtain, like pulled the curtain out, and her shoes was still out the bottom.
And
Swear, Jill.
It is. Oh, it's that. And then she eventually got to the toilets. So she said to this other woman,
She got
give us,
caught like
give us a shout when the vicar's gone. All right, okay. So she goes in the toilets, right? So we were all sat in the lounge. Anyway, he left the room thinking that he'd left the pub, but he hadn't. So this woman had gone to the toilet. She went, "Hey, Belly, you can come out now. He's gone." She went, "Oh, champ." She opened the door. He's standing there. He went, "Hello, Belly. How are you doing?" She went, "Hey, I've just come over to pass a message to one of my brothers." My dad was like, "Oh, it was horrendous, wasn't it?"
Port story when you were mentioning Port there. We all used to come to your mum's for Christmas, and I remember turning up, and your mum was fuming like,
Oh, we're running.
I was rather
Sherry.
It was sherry. Sherry, that's what it was, not Port. He'd been cooking in the kitchen, the Port, and happy as Larry, smashing the sherry in, and just got himself.
You know what he did as well? I don't know if this was the same year or not. So it was my dad, Ria. But he used to drink sherry every Christmas. It was the only time he used to really drink. As he was preparing the dinner, he'd be, as soon as he got up on the morning on the sherry. Anyway, your father come round. I think your Uncle Jim was there. We got up with Masons.
I remember this deal. You used to go up there.
All troops up the Masons, right? All the lads. So Ria, he'd been drinking the sherry, and he was all right. And anyway, we were getting pints and that, and what do you want, Ria? This is your dad. What do you want, Ria? Well, I didn't really know. I didn't fancy drinking beer. Like, he goes, "What's that orange stuff there?" Can you remember that 2020?
MD 2020.
This was like bottles like this, right? Can you remember?
I remember.
So, get us a bottle of that. You know, we're all back to work by this time and all that. So he gets a bottle of 2020, puts it in a pint glass, right? He's sucking it as though it was orange juice. I thought, he's going to end up mortal him, like. Anyhow, if we had, say, 6 pints before our dinners, he had 6 bottles of that on top of the sherry he had. Anyway, he started to like look a bit grey around the gills and that. I thought, he's going to be bad, eh? So I will make our way down for our dinner. So he is rolling the house. We start to come down the bank, and he's a bit of a wobble on like that, and he was grey as out, like. He got in the house, straight upstairs.
I remember this.
Next thing, he come in the house, through from the kitchen. She'd gone upstairs, right, come down, went off it with me. Blaming me.
Honestly, I remember the day.
You want to say this date days in, like, he never got any Christmas dinner now. We never saw him the next year.
I'm sure Andy Belly was worried about him choking on his own sick.
Oh, she was.
Kept going up and checking him and making sure he was on his side.
In fairness, she was worried about everything. Which I always remember, Stephen, right? If we wanted to make a few pence, because that's all it was, we'd go to the paper shop and we'd spend 20 pence, say, on hard sweets.
Oh.
And then we'd go around the building and put one in. She'd be like, "What you got there?" And you'd be like, "And you sure?" She'll give us it. She'd make you spit it out. How much did you spend on them? We're like 50 pence. And she'd be like, "Yeah." She'd give you 50 pence to buy them off you. So like 30 pence up, you know what I mean?
I can remember, right? This was when you had a paper round at the village paper shop, right?
Well, my dad did.
Well, it was yours in there. So
So
this day, right? I think it was a Sunday. And I was gone for a drink out of the King's Head. And I'd gone in the paper shop for something. And he waltzes in, right? I didn't know how old he were at the time. Like, I'm going to say like 12 or 13, something like that. So he comes in with his paper bag, right? Empty, done his papers, puts it down. And he went to buy something. I bet you can't remember this. I've told you before.
Yeah,
like, so I went in, right? And I was getting something. And he's like, short, say, 20 pence. And he goes, "Johnny, you haven't got 20 pence, have you?" Puts me hand in my pocket like a load of change. So he gets 50 pence out, right? So I gives him the 50 pence. He bought something where he needed, like to put the 20 pence through it, and then got something else with all the 30 pence and started to laugh like he didn't even realise. I just started to laugh. When you run the other week, I was saying to you, Sonny, like when you run about, when I took you down to Little Shaw them a few times, right? I can still remember the road, right? So and this is the road what you used to go on. There was no sat navs now. I'd done it that many times, and I don't think you realise how many times I did do it. I'd done it a load. We used to go down the A19 and we used to come off the M42 at Tamworth onto the A5, and you used to be on that A5 what seemed like
absolutely
forever, like longer than all the way back up. And then we used to turn off when you got over there, the A41 you called it, that took you up to Little Shaw. Just driving up that drive. Been in the car for like 3.5 hours. Not a word out of him. No phones now, just looking out the window like that. And we get up to the outside the digs and he just get his bag, open the door, shut the door, and right, say ya. Just fuck with us. And I used to laugh, man. It's funny as hell.
Probably 4 hours, John, you know, when you think.
Oh, it was a long drive. Then I had to drive back.
That's what I mean. You just wouldn't even contemplate it now if somebody said, oh.
That was when I first finished the pit, that.
Was it?
Aye.
What
I
car
think
did you have then, John? Do you have a Blue Rover?
either that or I had a Cavalier as well, a blue Cavalier. But that was when I was recovering from that knee.
Right.
I think I was to take it down there. But you know, when you run the other week, when we were down Coventry when you were playing for England, I remember so come on, ball kicks out, still blue,
bright white kit.
Right. In the photographs, it'd be loads of people, muddy people, are just too bright white at the end.
7 seconds it was.
It was 7 seconds.
And that's where we'll wrap up part one of this brilliant conversation with John and Gillian Devine. From snowy mornings in the village to graft and family and the stories that shaped their lives. And that's just part one. Massive thanks to John and Gillian for being so open and sharing memories that so many of us from the Northeast can relate to. Make sure you follow Pick Out a Crack on Spotify, YouTube and socials so you don't miss part two, because trust us, you don't want to miss it. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers.